Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to today's session of Ramadan Pioneer Series, an initiative by the Dubai Future Academy, which is the capacity building arm of the Dubai Future Foundation. Just to give you a brief of the Pioneer Series, it's an initiative by the Dubai Future Academy, and it's basically a community event of session and knowledge sharing, which highlights a range of futuristic topics. Maybe most of you are familiar of attending those sessions in our beautiful majlis in the 3D printing building in front of Emirates Towers. However, this year with the current situation, it didn't stop us from continuing this initiative and didn't stop us from sharing the knowledge. And let us look at it as a positive, and on the positive side, it actually helped us having it virtually and helped us to get a wide range of attendees to attend our sessions. And also we can invite different pioneers and speakers from all around the world to join this platform. Today, a lot of people maybe are complaining from COVID-19, but the idea of having those sessions is to think of what are the lessons that we can take away and how we can imagine the future life after COVID-19. It's also an opportunity for every one of you today to explore, to participate with us. And thank you for everyone who shared their questions previously. And it's actually it's your opportunity to share with us also within this session. And it's an opportunity for our speaker to share their ideas on the current topic. Maybe I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Nada Abdullah Turifi. I'm a member of the Dubai Future Foundation family, and it gives me a great pleasure to be with you today to moderate this exciting session, which is about the role of women in post-COVID-19 world. And what makes our session today special, not only the title, but because we are having a special speaker with us today. She's an Emirati woman. She is an entrepreneur. She is widely recognized for her contribution in the philanthropic and social responsibility. She is sustainability champion, active and passionate researcher. She focuses on women empowerment in youth. And she is the great granddaughter of the founding father of the UAE, His Highness Sheikh Sultan Al Nahyan. I'm honored to have with us today Her Highness Sheikha Shamma bint Sultan bint Khalifa Al Nahyan. She is the CEO of Alliances for the Global Sustainability, the founder of Circle of Hope Foundation, and the co-founder of Aurora 50. Welcome, Sheikha Shamma, with us today.
Thank you, Nada, for the kind introduction. Good evening, everyone, and Ramadan Kareem. I hope you are all keeping safe and well. Firstly, I would like to thank the Dubai Future Foundation for inviting me to speak today. I would also like to thank all of you for taking the time to join this conversation. The topic we are discussing today is one that is very close to my heart. It's also an important component of the wider sustainability agenda that has been my focus for many years. From advising local organizations to forging partnerships with global associations, the role of women in business and society remains a recurring discussion. These are incredibly difficult times, but as I outlined in the recent article shared with you, a number of key learnings and takeaways have emerged from this pandemic, which are helping us to build a roadmap for the way forward. It's a pleasure to participate in forums such as this, which create discourse that I hope will result in positive change. I will just share my screen.
Sure.
And take you through a presentation that I've put together. The unprecedented impact of COVID-19 has pushed markets and organizations to adopt new technologies, business models, and approaches in a way that no other force has ever before. However, it has also shed light on the cracks that exist in our current global political, economic, and social systems. When it comes to gender equality, it has highlighted that we are nowhere near where we should be, and the challenges of this widespread pandemic are being layered on top of existing issues. While trends have shown that men are at higher risk of dying from coronavirus, women are arguably more vulnerable due to the indirect impacts on their lives. For example, if we consider the closure of schools leading to a substantial rise in homeschooling in the last 3 months, it is primarily female caregivers who are bearing the responsibility of ensuring academic continuity for their children. Similarly, when members of a household fall ill, women take on the role of looking after them and nursing them back to health. This isn't simply because of social norms, but is in part driven by the current workforce structure. When considering who earns a higher income or who has less flexibility in their careers, the answer is still almost always the man of the house. Adding to this, the safety and security of women during these times is also under threat, especially in their own homes. According to the World Health Organization, 1/3 of women in the world experience physical violence in their lifetime, and that's under normal circumstances. During crises, this figure and the level of violence increases significantly due to the spike in emotional stress and frustration. I came across a recent report by one of the UN agencies, which states that if the lockdown continues for 6 months, there will be 31 million gender-based violence cases. So not only do these factors combined with a depletion in the job market means that the growth and development of women in the workforce is halted, they also risk setting any progress we have made back by decades. Despite being faced with the majority of hurdles arising from this pandemic, there is a distinct disparity in the level of female representation in decision-making positions. If we look at the healthcare sector, for example, more than 81% of global healthcare workers are female. And I believe in the UAE that's 81%, meaning that women make up the majority of frontliners fighting this novel virus. However, only 25% of leadership roles in the healthcare industry are held by women. That really is an incredible statistic to take note of. What I was very pleased to read in the news today is that the UAE will be giving extra support to children of medical professionals to ensure they keep up with their learning, but also to ensure that their mental well-being is looked after. So that's some good news I wanted to share with everyone from today. Of course, the challenges go beyond the current crisis, and they also go beyond the external forces. I'd like to introduce you to Nahyan. This bright young lady has succeeded academically, and even launched her own homegrown business. She dreams of one day leading an organization that will allow her to drive positive impact in her community and her country. While she has managed to overcome the obstacles presented by society, Maryam faces her own set of self-imposed barriers every day. Many women like Maryam suffer from imposter syndrome, that inner critic that convinces them that even if the opportunity was to arise, they would not have the qualifications or the experience to seize it. Research from NatWest showed that 60% of women who have considered starting a business did not because of a lack of confidence. That same research showed that 28% of working women feel like imposter syndrome has stopped them speaking in a meeting. 21% have been prevented from suggesting a new or alternative idea at work, and 26% have failed to change career or role. Similarly, research I have personally worked on, which considers the mindset of women across generations, showed that not only Maryam, but even her mother believes that it is more important for men to have a higher education qualification. In actual fact, research conducted by Korn Ferry has shown that self-awareness and empathy demonstrated by women makes them more well-rounded as leaders, as high emotional intelligence contributes to creating conditions that inspire team members to stay, but also contribute to the organization in the long term. The research also found that women outperform men in coaching and mentoring, influence, inspirational leadership, conflict management, organizational awareness, adaptability, teamwork, and achievement orientation. It is therefore no surprise that national leaders of different genders have taken a very different approach in combating COVID-19 on a countrywide level. On the left, you have an image tweeted by US Vice President Mike Pence showing an early photo of a US coronavirus task force meeting. On the right are leaders of the countries that have had the most effective responses to the pandemic. It's quite clear what they all have in common. Not only did these women acknowledge the seriousness and severity of the problem early on, they also made conscious decisions and acted quickly to mitigate the impact on their citizens. Their actions have ranged from early lockdowns to increasing access to testing and the implementation of new technology. So before we move on to the next slide, I'd like to share a poll with you. So if the poll can please, be shared. We're going to give you 1 minute to answer this question. What do you think are the main barriers preventing the progression of women into leadership or board level positions? I'm very curious to know your thoughts. Very interesting. Cultural and societal norms has the highest weighting out of the 5 options. We can discuss that in more depth during the Q&A session. I'm going to continue. So, oops. Put simply, if women make up 50% of the population, women should have a say in the decisions that affect their community as a whole. As this goes beyond societal impact governed by political leaders, it also applies to leadership positions in organizations. Every business, from multinational companies to startups and SMEs, have been and continues to be severely impacted by the coronavirus. We are hearing of pay cuts, redundancies, and closures across the board. But this is an opportunity for companies to reset and congregate a task force of their own. With the right representation, organizations can build a leadership team that can determine the best course of action for the business and for all employees. It is critical that women have a voice on these teams and boards, that they be empowered to use their experience and foresight to anticipate challenges and implement the right policies and measures to overcome them. Not just in times of crisis, but every single day of the year. I think we have one more poll that's supposed to go up now. What more needs to be done to support the development of women into leadership or board level positions? So mentorship and guidance, that's really interesting. We'll move on and we'll discuss the polls during the Q&A session. So this is what we set out to achieve when Diana and I established Aurora 50. The concept stemmed from an ideation session that we were hosting as More Equity, a platform for women that I launched in 2016 to bring together Emiratis and residents of the UAE for talks and workshops, but also to enable more community projects that would support more equity. During this session, we asked what needs to be done to help women climb the career ladder. We were amazed to find over 100 ideas arise from that one session alone. A reoccurring theme that emerged was the distinct gap between levels of experience and the requirements for board level positions. In order to qualify as a potential board member, candidates needed to demonstrate prior experience. And the relatively nascent third sector had limited opportunities, which meant they were not being seriously considered for those roles. We were really in a catch-22 situation. So we founded Aurora 50 to actively support the UN Sustainable Development Goals and focus our projects on how we can achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. With the launch of the 20 for 2020 initiative in March, we set the wheels in motion towards increasing female representation at board level across the UAE. Since our launch, we have built a solid network of partners to contribute to a tailored program that will offer women a tangible roadmap to securing board of director positions. This includes trainings, workshops, as well as executive coaching, mentorship, and hands-on board experience. I would say that there is truly no time like the present for women to upskill, create, and seize the right opportunities. Whether on an individual or organizational level, we all have the capacity to drive positive change. As leaders and decision makers, I ask you to take into consideration the learnings we have discussed today and let these guide your next steps in helping to future-proof your business. As members of society, I ask you to support female-owned local businesses and do what you can to ease the burden on women at home. My hope is that in these difficult times, we will not be held back. Rather, we will utilize our technologies and shift an organizational mindset to expedite initiatives that support gender parity more quickly. It is imperative that we join forces and collectively contribute to this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheikha Shamma, for the insightful presentation. Honestly, it was insightful for me too. And I think a lot of our attendees, maybe they have a question regarding the program, maybe the one you mentioned, and the session that will be the program and the session that we are going to hold. How they are going to register for it? Is it by going only to the website that you mentioned, the pathway20.com?
Yes. So basically, people can self-nominate themselves by going onto the Pathway 20 website, but they can also, through their organizations, approach us if that is something that their organization is trying to work on, diversity and including more female participation.
Perfect. Before maybe we start to the Q&A, Your Highness, I would like to inform our audiences that you can use the bottom footer of the screen where there is a button called Q&A, and you can share your question that you would like to share with Sheikha Shamma. We got several questions previously from some of you throughout our social media and registration. And we are going to try, inshallah, throughout the next 30 minutes to ensure that we involve everyone's voice in this session. And it's worth mentioning, Your Highness, that today's attendees, we got around 200 attendees to our session with diverse backgrounds. I looked at the people who registered. We have attendees from more than 20 countries around the world. We have students, we have representatives from private and government sector, we have entrepreneurs, and they are here to, they are curious to know what is the role of women post COVID-19. And thank you for the insightful statistics that you mentioned. But personally, as Nada, I also have a question for you, Sheikha, maybe as a personal level, as an Emirati woman. COVID-19 made me even maybe prouder of my country. Women in the UAE, we can see that they are present in all sectors and they have proven themselves successfully. We can see that a spokeswoman for the UAE health sector today, such as Dr. Farid Al-Hosseini, is a woman. If we are talking about statistics, 75% of the positions in the education and health sectors are occupied by women. In the UAE, we have 9 female ministers, and recently there are around 50% of women representation in parliament. If we are talking about legislation, it's worth also mentioning that the UAE have done a lot of effort since 2019 to 2020. The UAE had done more than 22 legal amendments to support women empowerment, which also helped us to raise our position in the women business and the law. To summarize all of what I mentioned, the UAE went in a golden mile when it comes to gender balance, and that's the result of the leadership support. Yes, a lot have been done, but there are also some gaps to improve, and we would like to know from you in this session what are the gaps that should be improved. Maybe some of them they mentioned the cultural norms throughout the poll. But we can see that there is a contrast between the UAE effort and in other countries, the women representation is a bit low. So what is it that the world is missing? And how can the UAE showcase the success story of women empowerment and gender balance to the world?
Thank you very much for this question. Before I address it, I'd like to tell you how pleased I am that we have such a diverse group of attendees that are watching this webinar today. Regarding your question, you've highlighted the incredible efforts of our leadership in empowering women in the UAE. I must say, gender equality and the recognition of the value of a woman's role in society has always been inherent in Emirati culture. We see that in a lot of these sayings by Sheikh Zayed, may his soul rest in peace. And much of this has been driven by the General Women's Union that was set up back in 1975 by Her Highness Sheikha bint Mubarak, to ensure that women are integrated in all parts of society. Together with the extensive work done by our government, by the UAE Gender Balance Council, the UAE has made great strides in showcasing our efforts in this respect to the rest of the world. The best way, in my opinion, we can continue to progress and share our accomplishments is through collaboration and partnership, as it is our collective ideas that will help shape the future. We've seen an increasing number of females in both business and government over the last decade, and that's a testament to all the efforts being done. It makes me so proud to see my fellow Emirati women thriving across industries, and many in male-dominated sector. So if I look at our Mars mission, for example, 34% of the people working on that team are women. So yes, it makes me extremely proud.
Thank you. And we are proud to have you with us today, and all your efforts are that you are doing actually in terms of supporting women, not only since this year, but going back, and I read even your research papers since back to 2013, 2014, you were focusing a lot on gender balance and empowerment. So thank you for all your effort. Going back, Sheikha, to talk about especially work. So currently with the current situation, we can see everyone is working from home. This actually happened overnight with the current situation. It helped us to see how it can be a viable options for many sectors. It makes jobs accessible, especially it will help women, mothers, and people who are taking care of their parents or elderly maybe, those who want to have a balance between work and life. So in your opinion, Sheikha Shamma, do you think working from home perhaps might be extended for women post-COVID-19? Is it a good thing or not? And also we have, related to this question, Shamma Al-Gamzi also shared her opinion. She wants to know your opinion if you think that companies should consider keeping the working remotely, especially for working mothers.
Thank you. I think remote working is one of the positives to come out of an otherwise very difficult situation. The shift in organizational mindset with regards to remote working policies has been tangible. It has proven to many companies that were unsure about it to begin with, that their teams are able to be as productive or even more so while working from home as opposed to in their offices. On a global level, a survey conducted by Gartner found that 74% of CFOs intend to shift at least 5% of their on-site employees to permanent remote positions post-COVID-19. They recognize the cost benefits of a remote workforce. I've even myself heard of companies here in the UAE that are contemplating reducing the number of days their staff are required to be in the office. So both men and women will stand to benefit from such changes, particularly working mothers, as the question that was shared by Shamma Al-Gamzi, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm hoping that both mothers and fathers will have the opportunity to balance work and home life much more easily. And that will encourage a more equal distribution of domestic responsibilities in the home and empower more women to join the workforce, especially after having a child.
Yes. Thank you, Sheikha Shamma. Sheikha Shamma, I know that you are holding a master's degree in sustainability leadership from Cambridge University. you focus a lot on the topic of sustainability, and you mentioned throughout your presentation how important to focus on the sustainable development goals. While I was searching about your profile, I was inspired when I read your quote that was installed in one of the halls in the University of Cambridge, when you said it's our collective duty to lead responsibility to create a better world for future generations. And speaking about the sustainable goals, um, in your opinion, what changes do you see the way maybe the community and the leaders in the countries are behaving towards achieving the sustainable development goals? And maybe you can specify or focus on goal number 5, which focus on gender and women.
Thank you. So for those of you in the audience that don't know about the Sustainable Development Goals, there are 17 goals with 169 targets that focus on sustainability as a whole. You'll realize they're wide-ranging, from eradicating hunger in the world to peace or gender parity. I do believe that gender parity is a prerequisite to achieving all of those SDGs. I also believe that the UN Sustainable Development Goals has really helped bring structure to issues that the world has been facing, but also uniting us and working towards accomplishing a common goal. I think beyond COVID, many nations, organizations, and individuals have become more aware of the consequences of their actions and are more conscious of the importance of sustainable practices. What's been fascinating is we're also seeing a shift towards greater responsible or impact investing. There was a report recently issued by JP Morgan, which has shown, and it's not new, we've seen this in history happen over and over again, but I'm hoping this time it's more of a wake-up call. That basically this report says that ESG assets, so assets that focus on environmental, social, and governance, tend to perform better during crises because they mitigate the risk by looking at the triple bottom line rather than just economic returns. And so this is incredibly promising and one that I do hope to see continue because ESG investments will in turn support progress towards reaching those UN Sustainable Development Goals. In addition, I think that new technologies introduced to support remote work and e-learning have opened the possibility for many developing nations to look at investing into platforms that may increase access to quality education. And I mentioned that in my article that was shared. And this particularly will be hugely beneficial to young girls, allowing them to build their skill set and seek new opportunities that may not have been feasible in the past.
You mentioned throughout your presentation, and thank you for mentioning that we should support entrepreneurs, especially women and working from home. We have a question from Noor Al-Mulla. She's saying, what advice you would give to women entrepreneurs who are currently facing challenges with their businesses, given to the current situation?
Noura, I would recommend that you speak to other entrepreneurs that are in the same in the same sector. I've seen this happen with friends of mine who own businesses but have decided to come together and share the burden. And so that could be an option. So for example, um, placing an order that both of you need, but instead of doing it independently, you do it together to bring your costs down. So speak to other people within the same industry, and find creative ways of bringing your costs down and sharing costs between both businesses.
Thank you, Sheikha. We have an interesting also question from Amna Dawes. She's saying, thank you, Sheikha Shamma, for such inspiring session, and it's a much needed effort to empower women in leadership position and board membership. I believe one obstacle which contributes to lower participation in high positions, and especially board membership, is that made decisions of such critical roles are made between men at, say, the majlises, and most of the times majority goes to the majlises are men. And is there a way where we can make such gender biases are overcome and more female participation is granted?
What a fantastic question. I do believe that a lot of decisions are made within the Majlis, and women not accessing those networks and environments just prevent um, that individual from being front of mind when those roles are decided on. I think organizations need to be aware of the biases. I also think that that many boards and many organizations see the value of diversity, and so they're seeking out women. And so women need to be prepared and ready to put themselves forward. I do think the Majlis is an issue, but I do think that with more diversity and a push for diversity. So for example, in January only, Goldman Sachs decided that they will no longer IPO a company that does not have diversity at board level, both gender and ethnicity. And so that poses real risk to countries that and organizations that are not pushing for more diversity. So that move will start making companies more aware of it, and so I am hoping that we see a shift there. It is near impossible to negate all bias. I do think that, and we've seen that when it comes to AI, that data sets with predominantly male data led to the creation of a 3D heart that works for men but won't work for women. And so people need to be aware of those biases and review the data well. But again, this is quite broad, and so depending on the different situations, yeah, biases need to be addressed.
Sure. Talking about what lessons can we take away, I have maybe two questions from Uhud and Sarah. Both are asking you for some insights that you would like to share with inspiring women leaders for tomorrow. And what kind of impact do you as Sheikha Shamma want to leave behind?
So since I launched More Equity, which is part of the Circle of Hope Foundation in 2016, and even more so since the launch of Aurora 50 this year, I've had the real pleasure of meeting and working with a number of inspirational and accomplished women who have succeeded in their respective fields. When I think back to the conversations we've had, there's always one common element, and that is the importance of mutual support and collaboration. If I were to share one piece of advice, it would be that you have to be clear with your goals, you have to remain confident in your capabilities, and you have to keep upskilling. You may come against roadblocks on your journey, but with the right network around you, you will find the solutions are closer than you think. I'm proud to say that that I'm surrounded by incredible women that are so supportive, and I consult with them, and even men for that matter, who have continued to bring fresh perspectives, and they share their experience in order to overcome any challenges. I think your second question was regarding my personal impact that I want to leave behind. For me, I really would like to contribute to making this world a better place for future generations. I'd love to see a transition towards a circular economy. I'd love to see happy, healthy, and thriving communities. And I would like to see women that are empowered, and that I see the alleviation of the suffering of children all around the world.
Very inspiring, Sheikha. Thank you. I think we have one question from Sheikha Ali Al-Qasimi. Sheikha Ali, can share your question with Sheikha Shamma.
Sheikha Shamma, thank you very much for this enlightening presentation. Now, as we saw from the poll, that networking is one of the key elements towards reaching leadership roles. Now, with considering the current situation we're in, I believe there would be somewhat of a lag for women who were probably on track for a long time. How long post-COVID do you think it may take for women to fast-track this lag?
Thank you very much for your question. I can't give an actual time because we don't know how long this virus is going to take. I do feel that rather than focusing on the negative, which is how do I get access to that network during these difficult times, I think focus on what can you do today that would bring a greater impact to your community and society? And what can you do to, one, invest in yourself, in your own education, in your own development, two, invest in another woman, and three, which is investing in grassroots community projects that support women empowerment or any other cause that you're passionate about.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Sheikha, we also have a question from His Excellency Umar al-Ulama, who's joining the session with us today. تفضل معاليك.
Shukran, Yanida, Your Highness. Thank you very much for the wonderful insights, the great presentation, and honestly, your charisma in putting the imperative in focus and showing us that there's a lot to do. I do echo your thoughts and say that there's a lot that we need to do. The UAE has been at the forefront of this since its founding with Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, God rest his soul, and as well all of the leaders that really have believed in the capabilities of women and have invested in them. It's not enough that we are leaders in the region. I think there's a lot more because we are aspiring to become the global leaders in this matter. I think, Your Highness, you raised a very important point that needs to be discussed a little bit more, I think, on global panels as well. If we're talking about work from home, if we're talking about virtual education and virtual employment as well, most of these platforms are dedicated to fulfilling the roles of men. If you think about working moms that are at home, it doesn't make sense for them to get up at 8 to start to go to work from their laptops if they're also teaching their kids from 8 a.m. till 3 or 4 p.m. There's a lot that needs to be done with regards to looking at the amount of hours at work for working mothers, the type of work as well that they can be doing, and the policies that are in place to ensure that they can balance between their responsibilities at home and their responsibilities at work. Being married to a superwoman, I would say that I think women are much better than men in how they can do the most difficult tasks and really have the bandwidth to focus on everything at once. My wife does a lot more than I do. So, I wanted to also take this opportunity to thank her and to say that your presentation made me appreciate how much she does at home and she does for work as well. Again, I wanted to just thank you and tell you that you've really opened my eyes personally. And I do hope to be able to contribute to this vision that you have and to really create this women's first movement starting from the UAE. Shukran.
Thank you, Your Excellency. You brought up a point that I wish to just continue. I want to add to, which is we've seen the government take a very active stance when it comes to women empowerment, but the private sector lag behind. So only, I believe, there's 15% of women on listed boards in the UAE, and that's not enough. And so the business community also needs to do their part and to create policies that support women and create a pathway for them. Because what we find is a lot of organizations have not basically created that pathway for them to move up the ranks. And so that's why we don't see them at board level. And the reason why I mentioned board level is because that's the single most impactful way, in my opinion, to create tangible change, because only then policies can cascade within an organization.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that as well. I'd like to share one insight that we have gotten at the AI office, the UAE government. We've worked on trying to deploy AI to combat COVID. So, we've developed a AI algorithm that's able to diagnose COVID from CT scans at around the 99% accuracy. And we've partnered with China, with the US, and many other countries to try to create the right algorithm. One of the challenges that we did find, and this is something that you hit on the head directly when you were asked this question, is the issue of bias. So there needs to be a lot more women in research as well. I think research today is dominated by males specifically. So there is a lot of bias in the data. And in an AI-driven world, and a world where digital is actually going to be the dominant force, women need to have a role to ensure that they are well represented and that these systems do actually have their best interests at hand. So thank you for that, bringing that up as well. And I'll open the floor for other questions. مشكورة طويلة العمر.
شكرا معاليك. Thank you, Your Excellency. And thank you, Sheikha Shamma. I wish I can cover all the questions that we are having in our session today. But last not least, His Excellency Khalifa Bilhol would like to give a final remark or question. تفضل سعادتك.
إن شاء الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. First of all, Sheikha Shamma, thank you so much. I mean, I will continue the chain of thanks that His Excellency Umar Al-Ulama has started. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be part of your several speeches in Jordan, or whether it being when we were honored to have you as well here in MTech. So such an inspirational session, whether here or there. So thank you so much for this. And speaking about women, I think it's time for men to get their acts together and to catch up with what women are doing lately. I mean, specifically when we come with the presentation that you've showed us on how even at a political decision-making level, you notice the more wise and subtle decisions that have been made by women leaders. So it clearly shows the progression on that front. And I think at a DFF level as well, we're proud of all the women. More than 50% of our team are women. They have different leading roles. Khalid Azza Sharhan is the Chief of Corporate Affairs. She did the full revamp of the Dubai Future Foundation. From a corporate structure perspective, we have different heads in different projects. Maha Ibn Zain is heading Area 2071, which is one of our largest projects. His Excellency Umar Al-Ulama talked about research and the importance of research. Maryam Limheri is also heading the Center for Fourth Industrial Revolution, which is a big partnership that we have with the World Economic Forum. And of course, I mean, more than a quarter of our board of trustees are top leaders from the United Arab Emirates are also women. So we're pushing that mandate as well. And I love the fact that you've specifically mentioned impact investing and double and triple bottom line strategies. I think this is extremely important, and we'd love to support in any way or form, because investing is not only about financial gains, and specifically investing in SDGs, investing in technologies, investing in the fourth industrial revolution requires patience and requires impact-driven results and things such as creating positivity, creating jobs, creating value that's beyond the financial returns, which will eventually create the foreseeable vision that our leaders have put for the region. And this is what it takes for us to really become a global innovation and a sustainability-driven hub for the world here in the United Arab Emirates. So again, I'm just continuing the chain of thanks that His Excellency had started. It's always an honor to listen to you speak, and looking forward to support you in all your great initiatives. And thank you once again in joining us in this session. Thank you to a great woman that we have as well, Nada Turifi, for hosting this event. And stay safe, and inshallah, we'll see you soon, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and thank you, Nada, for facilitating such an engaging discussion. It's been promising to see the level of interest from our audience, and I hope it has inspired all the participants of today's webinar to play a more active role in driving gender balance in the boardroom, in organizations, and in society.
Thank you, Sheikha. It was a pleasure to moderate a session with such a great role model for each and every Emirati woman. It was always a great honor to meet you for the third time. and hope it won't be the last time. Thank you everyone who joined our session today. We apologize if we didn't ask all the questions you shared, and we hope to see you in our upcoming sessions. Thank you.